Nice to see you.
Everyone.
Yeah. So we're 1 minute till 4, so we'll give it a minute or two to give everyone a chance to sign on and hear the presentation. We'll probably start with Justin and hopefully throw it to Barbara Lee as well when she's able to join between her votes on the floor. Is that where she is right now, Justin? Do you know?
I would assume so. I know she's on the Hill today.
Okay, good.
But it's been a very busy day. But for me, I've been doing it all from my house.
Oh yeah, right.
It is such a surreal time, you know, not being able to go down to the Capitol and you know, I really was hoping to be in the committee room when we got to this milestone, but hey, I'll take it from my home.
Right. Because this will be the first ever vote on marijuana legalization in a House of Congress in the United States. Yes.
Prohibition. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't use the L word because it doesn't force states to legalize, and I don't want to give people the impression in criminalized states that they won't be subject to arrest by local law enforcement.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're behind Mexico on this because the Mexican Senate just voted for legalization, but that it has to go through another house in Mexico as well.
Yeah, the lower chamber is expected to take it up. My understanding is next week.
Uh-huh. And the president has expressed support. I just saw.
Oh, in Mexico?
President of Mexico, Obrador?
Yeah.
That president.
Oh, that's right, ex-president. I beg your pardon, you're right. So what has the current president? I don't know if he's weighed in. And we had good news today. Dale, while we're waiting, could you talk a minute about what happened at the UN today? And we could also mention what happened in San Francisco yesterday.
Oh, yes. So the UN voted to take marijuana out of the international equivalent of Schedule 1 and make it recognized as another pharmaceutical controlled substance. So basically that makes the United States scheduling of marijuana in Schedule 1 obsolete or obsolescent. I must emphasize that it only is equivalent to rescheduling it. The UN can't really deschedule it. We're moving beyond that here with the MORE Act, but this was something we've been looking for like 60 years since marijuana was first scheduled by the UN.
Wow, so a historic week all around. And then yesterday in San Francisco, NORML and others, and I see Alexandra, who wrote a really wonderful letter to the supervisors on this. They tried to ban all smoking and vaping, including marijuana smoking and vaping in apartment buildings with more than 3 units. There was a great outcry among cannabis activists, and they voted to ban tobacco smoking and vaping, but not cannabis. And so that was the second city who voted this year to exclude cannabis from these non-smoking ordinances in apartments that are starting to proliferate with the support of anti-tobacco forces around the state. So we're pushing back on those, and there's going to be more to come in more cities on that, I believe. So thanks to everyone who wrote in on that. And why don't we throw it over here to Justin to give us an update on what's happening with the MORE Act. I know there were some amendments to it this week. It got through the Rules Committee yesterday, and it's up for a vote probably Friday, maybe even tomorrow on the floor of the House.
Yeah. So I'll start at the beginning, and we'll call the beginning on Monday. It has been a very long and exciting week as we see the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act move forward. On Monday, we got what is known as the Rules Committee text. This was an anticipated change that we were expecting, swapping out the tax section. The originally introduced bill cited back to the tobacco codes, which would have cause problems for existing industry regarding other associated federal regulations that are applicable to tobacco that would have been carried over to cannabis if we used their tax code. So what we did is we borrowed from the Marijuana Revenue and Regulation Act, which is currently carried by Mr. Blumenauer and Mr. Wyden in the Senate, to replace it. It's very similar to the structure. It's just we needed to write it all out for cannabis specifically. Among other changes, we unfortunately we saw an additional exclusion or additional language reiterating the Health and Human Secretary's ability to conduct federal drug testing for certain employees as they determine. So we're going to continue the fight. We still have a long way to go when it comes to drug testing policy for federal employees and the kind of precedent that those kind of federal policies set for the private sector. So we got those changes in the Rules Committee text. And then today, when the bill went to the Rules Committee, it was a very, very positive conversation that was had. I will say the opposition from the minority Republicans was muted at best. There was a member, Ben Klein from Virginia, who actually, as a state delegate, was a ally of Virginia NORML, and we had worked with him to advance a very narrow medical extract program, which has since grown into a full-out medical cannabis program in Virginia. But he was espousing concerns and a desire to reschedule marijuana. He kept on mistakenly assuming that marijuana is in the same categorization as cocaine, despite actually marijuana's criminalized nature is more severe than cocaine. But overall, it was a very productive conversation, and the majority party, the Democrats, spoke very passionately in favor. We saw members spanning the ideological spectrum of the Democratic caucus all expressing their support for this bill, their desire to see it pass on the House floor later this week, and really focusing the attention on a couple of different components. The one that got the most amount of attention was the reparative justice elements of the bill, and that was not unintentional. As we all know, throughout the country, over 500,000 people every single year are getting arrested, overwhelmingly for mere possession. So the cruelty and pain that the criminalization of cannabis inflicts, and that's modeled off of federal Schedule I status, really, I believe the majority Democrats did a really good job of underscoring the impact that removing marijuana from Schedule I or from the Controlled Substances Act entirely would bear out. We additionally saw a manager's amendment that was offered by Mr. Nadler move forward with some technical changes and just some explicit language authorizations. One of which is, going back to the federal employment drug testing policies. We saw it ensure that the Department of Transportation still has the ability to conduct drug tests for those who are in safety sensitive positions. That was a tough thing to see get explicitly laid out, but it was something that transportation pushed hard on, as well as expanding, putting explicit language that veterans would be able to get access to medical cannabis products or recommendations, that could be filled out, having VA doctors fill out state legal forms for in the jurisdictions that have medical cannabis programs. This is something that we knew was going to happen with the descheduling in total, but in order to provide assurances that there was legislative intent for such, that was included by Congressman Lou Correa. So what happens today, just to the Schoolhouse Rock version of this, if you will, is that now the Rules Committee was the final hurdle between the legislation and getting to be considered for a full vote by the House of Representatives. This is, I feel like a broken record sometimes almost when I always get to say, this is the first time ever, this is the first time ever, this is the first time ever, because we are now in that moment where we are breaking barriers, on a regular basis. So this was the first time ever that the Rules Committee had taken up for floor consideration a bill that addresses marijuana's Schedule I status, and that is not insignificant. We do expect the vote on Friday. They could pull it up early, but we don't expect them to do so. We do expect to have to wait until Friday. So I hope everybody's okay with waiting an extra day, and we're all very anxious to see this vote finally get tallied, so that way Americans around the country can know whether or not their representative supports or opposes the maintaining federal criminalization. It's hard to say for sure. In just the last few weeks, NORML members and supporters have driven an additional 20,000 messages to Congress. We're very excited to see the surge of interest on this legislation. In recent weeks, we've had a number of groups joining this call, from the ACLU to the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights to the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, and many other organizations representing a broad ideological spectrum of American political interests and people's interests who wish to see marijuana prohibition ended, all joining this fight and singing in unity in support of the MORE Act. And we feel very good. I have to say, this morning I was very, very anxious because I know that, normally when we see in the House, once a bill gets through the Rules Committee, it makes it to the floor. But there have been times on other pieces of legislation that are important to the body politic that, something will get scheduled for the Rules Committee and then later pulled. We saw this happen in September in the lead up to the vote. We thought we were going to get a vote, but then out of the political circumstances and the intransigence of the Senate for advancing a COVID economic relief passage, there was just a lot of anxiety amongst many members of the majority caucus to cast a vote on marijuana before the election. It's not a political calculation I would have made, but that, it's what happened. So it's a really, really exciting time. I feel so privileged, getting to be on here with Dale and Ellen and hearing about the amazing work that you guys are doing on a regular basis in California and have done for a very long time. Really laid the foundation for us to be at this moment and stand up and we are going to see this later this week, the first ever vote in the Chamber of Congress to end marijuana prohibition nationally. It's very, very exciting. So I don't know how you want to do this. If you got questions, comments, concerns, or I know I'm very, very excited that Congresswoman Barbara Lee is going to be joining us in a few minutes. Just for those, just in case anybody doesn't know how amazing Congresswoman Barbara Lee is, she is phenomenal. She has been absolutely critical in securing support from across the ideological spectrum of the House of Representatives to ensure that we got to this position to be able to get this vote. As the co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, she has she called it. I know her staffer Samira is going to be calling in here too, and I just want to just shout out Samira. For many of you, I'm sure at the local level and at the state level, having good staff who work on these issues is absolutely critical because they are the ones who keep the elected officials focused, and they're the ones who put the pieces of paper in their hands to make sure they know what they're talking about. And Samira does a phenomenal job, and we're very fortunate to have her working with the Congressional Caucus to make sure things are moving smoothly. And I don't want to steal her thunder. I mean, this is truly Barbara Lee's moment. She's been fighting for these issues for decades as well. Has been absolutely critical in normalizing the association between the records expungements and legalization in general, which we firmly believe should go hand in hand now that we have this momentum. We need to provide an end to the suffering for those who are having those criminal records still holding them back from being, you know, a good civic citizen. So it's just you know, again, so I know she's joining any minute.
We have Samira in the participant room. So Brett, can we unmute Samira so she can speak?
Or call her out. Yeah. Bring
She's,
Samira up.
yeah.
I don't want to embarrass her.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, I heard my name, but I didn't hear the question. Good to be with you all.
Hi.
I was bragging about how amazing you are, Samira.
Thank you so much, and we couldn't do it without you all, so really appreciate all of your advocacy and work. I am trying to get the Congresswoman on. It's a little bit tight with the votes and her schedule, but if you could just give me a couple minutes, I'm going to do my best.
Okay, fantastic. So so she'll be coming on your feed, so to speak, or will we be watching?
No, this is just me on my computer, and if she's able to get on, it'll be through the phone because she's in between her votes and leadership meetings. As I'm sure you can imagine, it's an incredibly hectic time in Congress at the moment.
Right. So yeah, and otherwise we could ask maybe you a few questions. I mean, I was curious about, I know there's quite a few members of the California congressional delegation that have supported it, including some that were brought in by LA NORML recently after Justin put out the call. Is there anyone in particular you can think of from California that we ought to be particularly targeting to get a yes vote on more in the next couple of days?
I think that's a great question. I would just urge everyone to reach out to their members of Congress and check out the congress.gov to see if your member is already a co-sponsor. If your member is not a co-sponsor, then I definitely would say that you should reach out to them. They need to listen to their constituents. So I think that's a great way to go about it. Can't think of off the top of my head what specific members. I know there are a handful of California members that are still not co-sponsors of this bill. And I bet Justin has that info available and he'll make sure he can get that to you.
Conveniently, the
yes.
Congress.gov list is linked in our action alert that makes it very, very easy for individuals to send a pre-written letter that you have the ability to edit and add any personal stories you may have or additional information. It automatically identifies your member of Congress and sets up through an API code to submit that letter directly to them. In the action alert that I just posted in the chat, you can see it there. Additionally, I will flag to answer Ellen's question, California has one of the 3 Republicans who have committed to vote yes on the MORE Act. That's Congressman Tom McClintock. So it certainly wouldn't hurt to just give him a call and remind him that you appreciate that he has publicly committed to voting yes on this bill, and encourage him to identify other of his Republican colleagues to bask in the waters of justice and additionally vote yes on the MORE Act when it comes up on Friday. Because momentum begets momentum, and this is something that we're seeing. And as of this moment, we only have 3 publicly confirmed yes votes from the minority party. I just
dropped the link to the congress.gov in the chat for ease of reference. So feel free to take a look.
Okay,
hey folks, this is Chris Kiyoshin from Congresswoman Lee's office. I have her on the line.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome, Congresswoman Lee.
Yeah, hi, let me just, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just have like 2 seconds. I'm really sorry about this conflict, but I had to vote. I'm driving and I have a meeting, a leadership meeting, steering and policy at 7:30. So just know that your work and what you've been doing to help us get the MORE Act to the floor is just really amazing. I started working with NORML, and I mentioned this over and over again in the 70s when I worked for our great hero, Congressman Ron Dellum. And so NORML's work and what you have been doing on so many fronts for so many years is really dear to my heart. it, you know, and to think that we're close to getting this off the floor. We now have 120 co-sponsors. This took a heck of a long time and a lot of work, mainly by you. This MORE Act, you know, it makes multiple important changes to federal marijuana policy, including facilitating the expungement of low-level federal marijuana convictions, pathways for ownership opportunities. You know what the issues are, but it really is an issue of racial justice. The data speaks for itself. Black Americans are nearly 4 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis-related crimes than white people. And so that is just a shame and disgrace. You look at Black and Latino men, in terms of their incarceration rates, they have longer sentences, despite equal rates of abuse amongst everyone. And so we have seen new states now move toward either legalization or decriminalization, and the American people, you know, they want cannabis reform and they want it now. So let's hopefully get this bill off the floor. I hope we have a good bipartisan support. And I just want to thank you all so much for everything you've done to get us to this point.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Lee, for all you do.
Have a good, okay, so we'll see you hopefully as soon as COVID is done.
Yeah.
But
right.
stay healthy and stay safe.
Thank
Okay?
you. Same to you.
Okay.
Thank
Okay. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Okay. So that was really great. She was able to squeeze us in.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy here. I don't know, any casual observer of the news sees that there's still a lot of scrambling efforts to get a new COVID package done. And I know Congresswoman Lee is really fighting hard for California to ensure that we don't go over the cliff once the current programs that were put into place by the CARES Act run out. So there's just a lot of things going on here in DC, which again, really we're fortunate that we're not getting dropped from this session, because you know, if I can do a reverse question to Dale. Dale, when you know you've been doing this for a little while, did you ever think that the first session of Congress that took up a bill was going to be the session of Congress that ended prohibition? You're on mute.
I think you have to unmute yourself, Dale.
You gotta unmute Dale. Dale, you're on mute.
I was actually expecting a rescheduling bill, a medical marijuana bill. In fact, I was expecting that in 1997 or so, right after we passed Prop 215, which shows how naive I was. I'm glad we've jumped beyond that, because I knew that was only a halfway measure.
Yeah.
But to see it, a full descheduling bill, I guess, has there been no prior descheduling bill submitted? I guess maybe not.
The first one was in 2011 with Barney and Ron Paul.
Oh, yes. Well, yes.
But how many
well, this is the first one to get a hearing. This is the first one to get a hearing at any rate.
Yeah, for years and
it helps when the bill. It helps when the bill is sponsored by the committee chair. I will say.
Mm-hmm. No, certainly, and the only reason it was, and I've overheard Mr. Nadler and Miss Lee and Mr. Blumenauer, or Congressman Blumenauer, first time I'm saying his name today. You know, talk about this all the time, and the chairman's always just like, you know, we're only doing this because of the work that Congresswoman Lee and Congressman Blumenauer have been doing on this issue for a very long time. You know, always, you know, as the Congresswoman said, like, she's been, you know, doing this issue since the 70s. And if you stand there long enough, they'll start to see you. And we're finally, you know, we're going to be seen on the floor of the House of Representatives this week.
Let me ask, though, the question was raised earlier about what congressman to contact. I don't know whether we have anybody here from Bakersfield, but if we do, I think Minority Leader McCarthy needs to hear from his constituents about this. He's been trying to make light of this for quite a while and to joke about it. And frankly, he's been a joke himself. He's voted against every marijuana bill that's ever come before him, beginning with the medical marijuana bills we had here in California when he was in the state legislature.
Okay, well,
I will flag that there are a couple of members of the California delegation who have yet to co-sponsor this bill of the Democratic majority, and just to list them out before I got them here. It's Representatives Costa, Schiff, Garamendi, Ruiz, Barragan, Vargas, Davis, and Barra. Julia Brownlee, I see that Julia Brownlee actually co-sponsored the bill. You know, her staffer Sujit, he's a good cat. She co-sponsored the bill earlier this year, I think it was when we got her on. It was I met her staffer a couple years ago, and we finally found a pathway to get her on the bill. So she's come around. She's there. So yeah, we have a lot of, you know, we still have a little ways to go to get the full delegation, but there are very few states where we see the full delegation co-sponsoring a bill. I think, off the top of my head, I think the only one is North Carolina, where we have every Democrat from the state on the bill.
How about Hawaii?
Nope, Ed Case is not on the bill. Yeah. So is there anything else that I could talk about for you, Ellen?
yeah, I think that pretty much covers the portion of the meeting that we were devoting to the MORE Act. We were going to turn to some state and local issues now, but we thank you very much for attending and for all the amazing work you're doing.
Oh, I see Sean asked a question in here, so let me just, if I sorry to cut you off, Ellen. Regarding research, the critical, you know, much of the barriers of prohibition, or just all of these issues that we've compartmentalized and tried to attack as one-offs, be it research, be it, you know, veterans equal access to allow VA doctors to fill out state legal medical cannabis forms, be it, you know, the banking issue, be it the 280E issue. All of those issues are centered around the pillar of the Schedule I status. Now, there are going to be later what we're going to be calling perfecting language to address the critical components and build out better government protocols when it comes to, you know, providing funding for research, when it comes to specific directions of, you know, we want NIDA to specifically address, like, search or study these components. But this bill is squarely and laser-like focused on the criminal justice components of it, and doing everything possible at this moment that the Congressional Cannabis Caucus and the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, thought we could get. We called it the MORE Act because we asked for a lot, but there's still going to be more that needs to get done. And you know, there's never such thing as a perfect bill. But you know, there's you know, this is the pillar, and once the pillar falls, everything else gets easier. You know, it's the old adage, the Gordian knot, if you will. Oh, also, sorry, there's two other members. Scott Peters' office is not on the bill yet. I know. I know, Dale, I see you cringing because, Dale, I brought you into Peter's office a couple different times, and we had those great conversations about the research facility in San Diego and how the congressman's interested in making sure that they're able to engage in, you know, amazing research there. But yeah, they've yet to co-sponsor the bill. And unfortunately, actually, Scott Peters was one of the first members of the Democratic caucus to speak publicly about the idea of punting the bill back in September. So we certainly hope he's going to vote in favor of the bill. So anyone in San Diego, you want to give Scott Peters' office a call, just double confirm that. You guys are constituents. You know, I am but the humble lobbyist of NORML, trying my best. And then also Doris Matsui. But she spoke today at the Rules Committee in favor of the bill. And we have every confidence she's going to vote the way we want her to vote too. Sorry to cut you off, Ellen. I just wanted I saw the question about research and figured I'd get in.
No, I'm glad you got a chance to answer that. And yeah, we saw Doris at lobby day a few years ago. She took some time, a lot of time with our delegation and everything. So that's great to hear that she's said good things about it. So yeah, great. So yes, thanks again for taking time out of what must be a crazy busy week to join us, Justin.
Thank you very much.
Helping us to rope in Representative Lee for those great words. And
we'll get some more time with the Congresswoman when she's not trying to stave off an economic cliff due to a global pandemic.
Yeah, right. Okay. We'll hold her to that. Yeah. Okay.
But no, you got it, Ellen, and I can't wait to see you guys again in DC once we can for lobby days. I mean, the work that I cannot emphasize this enough. The work that you all have done to move your congressional delegation. You know, you have one of the 3 Republicans who have committed to voting in favor of this bill from your state. You have, you know, the largest block of members in support of this bill who are co-sponsors. Like the tenacity, the shoe leather, the elbow grease from, you know, the relationships that were built. I'll never forget when Norma, sorry, another real quick story. So in September, we put out the call. LA NORML reached out to Congresswoman Nora Torres to co-sponsor the bill. She agreed to, and then she did a live stream with the LA chapter, and she mentioned an interaction that she had with Dale years and years ago when she was, I think, a state rep, right? Not state senator, and how you guys were butting heads at the time, and she acknowledged that she mistakenly took the law enforcement lobbyists at their word, and now she knows better, and she knows better thanks to in no small part to the efforts and the battles that you had previously. So it's really remarkable to see the cumulative effects of all of the work that's been done over the years. Now culminating in this historic vote, and we need to take this momentum. We need to, you know, we're going to see what happens in Georgia with the Senate races, and there may very well be a pathway to end prohibition next year. So here's hoping. Thank you again, El. I'm sorry, I'm
we have a question about Mark Desaulniers. I do not believe he's a sponsor. People from Contra Costa are asking if they need to reach out to ensure his yes vote.
Let me double check and pull up my whip sheet. I might have missed him when I jotted down.
I don't think he's on it. I remember Mickey, who wrote this in, reaching out earlier to his office.
Yeah, I think I missed a couple. I have like 3 different spreadsheets I'm working off of right now, and I know I've communicated with his office. Do we not have him on the bill? Thank you for flagging that. I appreciate that.
Members don't have them all. All right, well, we'll look into that, I guess, and we'll get back to
you guys got some homework. We got like 43 hours until this vote, give or take, right? Don't quote me on hard 43 hours, but just over a day. So if you can, make sure you send a message to your member of Congress. Make sure you're sharing the action alert to get others to do the same. Make sure you're telling them to contact and then have them share it. We really don't want to let our foot off the gas right now.
Let me ask you, Justin, at this point, what do you think is the best way to get in contact with Congress? Phone, just call the office and say vote.
Yeah, we tell people to do the action alert because then that puts them into the thing, and then we're set, like, so when we're on our email systems that we're pushing out, we're telling people to make phone calls. So if you're on our email list already, you've gotten an email from us every day. You will get another one tomorrow. Whether or not you called yesterday, you're gonna get another email asking to call again today, because it's just, sorry, don't unsubscribe, please, but like, it's too important. We need to be making sure we're getting these calls in, because we're really running out of time here.
All right. So what's the congressional switchboard number? I'm gonna post it here.
That's a good question. I'll
look it up. We'll post it.
All right.
Great. Yeah, I sent it out earlier this week. If you're on CalNORML's email list, you would have gotten it, and also with Justin's script that you can use if you want to. So this is, oh wow, I'm getting congressional switchboard, but we need the House, not the Senate. So
the general congressional will work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. 225-3121.
That sounds correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Justin. We're going to really leave you go now, I think.
I'm 3 minutes late to my next call. All right.
All right. Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right, Samara's the best. I saw she's still here. Just reminding you. All right. Hey, guys.
Oh, okay, great. Yes, of course she is. Okay, great. All right. Okay, so that was fun, and what a historic week. The UN, the House is happening. But I want to turn now to what's been happening in California, because we've got Hirsch Jane here on the line from LA NORML, and he's got a presentation about what happened in the November election. Is we had, I believe, 32 different cities and counties voting on cannabis measures, and almost all of them passed. Brett, we need to unmute Hirsch so he can share his screen. You know, talk about opportunities for watchdogging this process at a local level. We're having our opposition show up in many forms at the local level. People who just spouting reefer madness, parents who are fearful of what this will mean for their children, anti-tobacco people who are fighting against smokers' rights and consumption rooms. And the battle is not over. And no, it's just really shifted to where the rubber's hitting the road at the local level. I mean, we just saw it yesterday, even in San Francisco. So Brett's gonna give us, I'm sorry, Hirsch is gonna give us a bit of an overview of all of these things and what we should be looking for in these local measures going forward. So Hirsch, you wanna take it away?
Sure. Thanks, Ellen. Hey, everyone. It's great to be with you today. My name's Hirsch. I'm here representing LA NORML. And as Ellen mentioned, what we're going to talk about today for about 10 minutes or so is California. I'm going to walk you all through some interesting examples of what's going on across the state. Nothing too sort of crazy. And then that might spark some discussion. So the first thing, as I think many of us on this call know, is one of the main challenges the California industry faces is just a lack of retail outlets, which is a function of local control. So there's 482 cities across California, and only less than 100 of them have allowed for cannabis retail. And that's been a huge bottleneck on the industry across the state. Now, one of the things that happened this past November is that a number of these municipalities had cannabis measures on their ballot. So there were 35 different pro-cannabis measures. Excuse me, 35 different pro-cannabis measures across the state, and 32 of them passed. Now, you know, we don't have time to go through all the measures on this call, but what I thought might be interesting to do is just to talk through some of the cities that have recently passed ordinances, what they've done well and what they haven't done well. And then for these cities that just passed measures that have yet to develop ordinances, what we can do to make those ordinances more progressive and equitable. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's 100 different cities that have, you know, allow retail in some form. But a lot of those cities, you know, have a really limited number of licenses, right? Which makes it harder for smaller or medium-sized operators to set up shop. Or some of those cities have really high tax rates. So even the companies that do set up shop there have a hard time succeeding. And so as these new ballot measures have passed, a lot of the details are still TBD. And I think we can look to previous cities and what they've done well and what they've struggled with as all of us locally try to influence what these measures look like going forward so that they enable greater participation in the industry and are more equitable. So I'm going to start by just walking through a few examples of what has already happened in the state, some cities, like what they have done well and what they haven't. And then I'll finish by highlighting some of the measures that passed and, you know, what it would look like to have a really equitable ordinance in that city. So first is, you know, this example of Fresno, where license applications are due this Friday. Just quickly, I think there are some things that Fresno has done really well or has done decently well. So they're issuing 14 licenses. As you can see, they're allocating at least 2 of them for equity applicants. You can make the argument that maybe that should be much more, but there's at least some equity component. They also have a local preference requirement. So 5% of the scoring in Fresno will go to operators that have some sort of a local presence in the city of Fresno. They also have a labor peace agreement requirement, right? So in order to apply in Fresno, you know, you have to say that you're not going to interfere with the ability of employees to organize, and they have a relatively low tax rate. So that's all a way of saying they've done, you know, I think some things well. They have a low tax rate. They have labor protections. They give preference to equity applicants. But they're only issuing 14 licenses, which really is only one for every 40,000 residents, when it should be much more. So again, that was quick, but I think it's a good example of what a city's doing well and what it isn't. This next one is an example of Corona in Riverside County. I think there's some things that Corona is doing sort of pretty well, and their applications are due in a couple of months. So they're issuing 12 licenses, or one for every 15,000 citizens. That gives folks, an opportunity to compete. But there's other things that they aren't doing as well. A tax rate of 7% is pretty high, and they also don't have any local equity program or local preference. So I think some good, some bad. Again, just going through examples here, Redwood City, this is an application process that'll open early next year. One of the things that they're doing well is they're issuing 6 licenses. There are some cities of 90,000 people that have only issued 1 or 2, which makes it very difficult for folks to compete. So they're issuing 6 licenses, which is good. Their tax rate is 4%, which is good. There are other cities in the Bay Area like San Jose where it's 10%. But what they're kind of lacking is in the area of labor protections and having some sort of local preference or equity program. Just a couple more examples here, and then we'll sort of just highlight a few cities that have yet to craft their ordinances. Here's a city that I think is going to be pretty problematic. So this is the city of Ventura. They are going to open up their licensing process early next year, but they're only issuing 2 licenses for a city of 120,000 people. Cities that issue those few licenses, they tend to end up in sort of lawsuits. Also, they have a relatively high tax rate of 8%. So even the folks that get those licenses are going to have a hard time competing. Here's one final example of San Bernardino. A couple of things that I think they're doing that are interesting. One, they have a relatively low tax rate of 4%. And then the second thing they're doing is they had initially issued 10 licenses, but they realized that there was room for more participation in the industry. And so now they're issuing 7 more licenses. And I think there are a lot of cities out there that could stand to benefit from opening up their local, cannabis economies more and allowing folks to participate in it. So those are just, 5 examples of cities. And again, the things we sort of noted were tax rates, the number of licenses being issued, if there is local preference, an equity program, and labor protections. And so I'll just close with this by highlighting 3 different cities that passed ballot measures in November, where the details are still up in the air, and we can sort of, do a thought experiment about what a good ordinance would look like. So this first one is Costa Mesa. I think a lot of people are excited about this because Orange County has historically been a very conservative place, where Santa Ana is the only place where retail was available, but now a lot of cities are opening up. And so Costa Mesa passed an ordinance by a strong margin. We still don't know how many licenses they're going to issue. My opinion is, in a city of 120,000 people, they should be issuing 8 to 10 or 12 licenses. I think it would be unfortunate if they only issued just 4. Another thing, they can decide to adopt a tax rate between 4 and 7%. I think it would be better. If it were 4%, it would be a much more hospitable climate for industry. And I think it would also be good if they incorporated some element of local preference, because there's a lot of businesses that have already contributed to the Costa Mesa cannabis economy. A couple more examples. Hawthorne is another exciting city. South of Los Angeles, like South LA and below, there's very few retail outlets. So Hawthorne has an opportunity to capture a big regional market. With a population of 100,000 people, I think it would be a great thing if they issued 8 to 10 licenses instead of 3 to 5 licenses. But we'll have to see. They set their tax rate at about 5%, which I think is fair. And again, still TBD is whether they'll incorporate some element of equity or local preference. This last example I'll leave you with is Vacaville. They just passed a tax ordinance. It's a city of 110,000 people. And what's interesting is their neighbor, Fairfield, to the south, which is just as big of a city of about 100,000 people. They recently had a process and opened up, but they decided to only issue 2 licenses, which again is a very small number of licenses for a city of 100,000 people. So I think it'll be interesting to see whether Vacaville has a more sort of a broad-based tack to the industry that allows more folks to participate, and also whether it incorporates equity or local preference. So that's all I had. Just wanted to give folks an overview of what ordinances are looking like and what the different pressure points are to craft more equitable local industries that enable more participation in them. So thank you. I think you're on mute, Ellen.
Well, actually, just let me interrupt here for a second on behalf of Cal NORML. I'm so glad to see so many people here. And I know we are all tremendously excited by this eventful climax that we are coming to this week. Cal NORML could really use some donations at this point. We have not been hitting you up this year. We haven't been even able to send out our newsletters, except now this month. We will hopefully be sending one shortly, but we apologize for that as everything has gotten gummed up by COVID. But we really do need support now to get us through this next couple years. I think we need to finally bring the ship home. So visit our website, and all of our good friends out there, please help us through. Thank you.
Yes, and you can join either as a member, personal membership, or a business membership. Carla's on the call, and she's going to put up some links about business memberships and how to take advantage of the exposure that you get on our website, etc., with the business membership. And but I mean, a large part of our support is also personal memberships. If you are a member, you will be getting our newsletter shortly by the end of the year, and that'll give you an indication of your membership status. If you have any questions about it, you can write to me. I'll put my email in the address. We've got a little promotion of a really neat lapel pin, a vintage one that we're gonna send to 2021 members. And because as many know, this year and going into next year is NORML's 50th anniversary. So it's a big year for us, and not a year to stop working. We're still working on employment rights for cannabis users. We're expanding that vision to all cannabis users, not just medical, because it's starting to happen that way in some other states now, and we want California to catch up on that. It's been a challenge with COVID going on, but it's something, I think one reason it's happening in Congress is this is an issue that does have bipartisan support. I mean, huge poll numbers on marijuana legalization, so much happening on this. It's really a good time to build on this momentum and keep Cal NORML going. So canormal.org is our website. I'll post that also. So thanks, Hirsch, for that. And yeah, we also have on our website, and I'll post a link, a local toolkit to help people get active at the local level, where you should be monitoring what's happening at your local city councils, boards of supervisors, newspapers. We can respond with facts to the kind of hyperbole we're here at a lot of these meetings. And, people need to develop relationships with their local elected officials. I see there's some people from Contra Costa NORML who's been effective there by, working with local officials. And sometimes, boy, it can be really difficult because the zoning powers of locals have enabled them to really squelch things on many levels. And it's something, despite the fact that Prop 64 carried most of the state by large margins, we're still seeing resistance at the local level. So wrap that up, because I want to get to our final guest of the night, which is it's distinguished person, Ishaq Ali. He works with the company Ease, and Ease has now given away, I believe, about $500,000 in local equity grants to businesses kind of an accelerator program, and they have a grant cycle open right now. And we wanted to make sure and give everybody a chance to hear about that. So Brett, if you haven't unmuted Ishak, could you please do that so that he could speak? There he is. Hi.
I am here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really, really appreciate it. I think some of the information that was talked about here is really important. So shout out to CalNORML for all of the amazing work that you all are doing. You really are paving the way for the future of this whole industry. So really, really appreciate it. So my name is Isak Ali. I'm the Senior Social Impact Manager at EASE and the co-creator and program manager of the Momentum Business Accelerator. Momentum is a business accelerator focused on supporting underrepresented founders in the cannabis industry. And the program includes a $50,000 grant where we don't take any equity in the business. The purpose of this grant is to support the small businesses that are in the program throughout the duration of it. It also includes 12 weeks of business-focused curriculum taught by different industry experts, alongside access to over 70 mentors throughout the EASE network. And then we conclude the whole program with an investor demo day after about 3 months of accelerated work together. And we're looking for underrepresented and historically marginalized entrepreneurs who've been harmed by the war on drugs that are seeking to enter the industry. As we all know, this industry is incredibly difficult to work in and to enter. And it's even more difficult for those who have been like actively harmed and targeted by the war on drugs. So they're the folks that we're really trying to support throughout all of this. And we're focusing on businesses that are beyond concept and ready to grow. And this year we are expanding nationally. So if there's anyone who's logging in from outside of California, please feel free to apply and please share with your networks, both inside and outside of California. And I just really want to take this moment to recognize the fact that as this industry grows, it's impossible to ignore the injustices of the war on drugs, and that we created Momentum as our contribution to supporting social equity as this industry continues to grow. Businesses like us need to recognize that our industry was built on the backs of Black and brown folks who were historically criminalized, and we need to do something about it. But outside of just this being the right thing to do, the industry trends are starting to move towards social equity and economic empowerment. Like, I assume that this group more than anyone knows that cannabis consumers are conscious consumers, and the numbers really are starting to prove it. So just to share some success stories from last year, most of the brands that went through the program ended up getting onboarded onto the EASE platform. And that's a really big deal because at the beginning of the program, we didn't guarantee anyone placement onto the menu. But by virtue of being in the program from beginning to end, most of them were able to get onboarded and were prepared to be on the EASE platform within 8 months of participating in the program, which I think is a really, really big deal. And then other businesses were able to raise capital or grow beyond their original markets. And 100% of the entrepreneurs, every single entrepreneur who went through this program said that they would recommend this program to other folks who are trying to enter the industry. And then I really want to just touch on just social equity generally. Like, one of the things that EASE has done, I think, really well is that we created a social equity menu to really highlight and target our consumers' focus on social equity businesses that are on our platform. And that menu alone has done over $2.2 million in sales in 2020 alone. And I think that is proof that consumers want it in itself. So I highly, highly recommend everyone to check it out. There's amazing brands on there. Half of them came from the Momentum cohort, and just generally just amazing brands to support. And then I just want to conclude with just programs like Momentum are imperative as the social equity question continues to be debated by state, local, and federal jurisdictions, as we had mentioned earlier in this call with the MORE Act. And when we're looking at California does not have any social equity programs mandated at the state level. And we're starting to see a lot more states go online. And even though some of them are including social equity into their proposals, not all of them have social equity at the center. And so what that means is that puts the burden on the industry even more so to fill in that gap. not just because it's the right thing to do, which it very much is, but it honestly is the key to long-term sustainability for the industry. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to put out a call to action to everyone that you should be supporting social equity programs or building it into your business model. If we want to see true systemic change, we need to be changing the industry from within. And so it honestly is the least that we could do. So if there's anyone that's interested in applying for the program or learning more generally, please visit ease.com/momentum. We have a beautiful video that was produced about our cohort last year. I challenge everyone to watch it without shedding a few tears. And if you have any questions and want to reach out, please send me an email at momentum@ease.com. Once again, ease.com/momentum will have the application link that is open nationwide. And the deadline to apply is December 15th. So thank you again, Cal NORML. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Really, really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Isak. That's very helpful. And Ease has been a Cal NORML business member who's helped us out and so many ways and has been involved in activism also. So they're really walking the walk with this program, and it's great to see. So, I think I messed up the email a little bit. It's ease.com, not .co, that I just posted everybody. So great, well that wraps up our program. If I suppose we could throw it out for some discussion if people want to stick around, and if our host Brett can do so. I think we're at the raise the hand kind of point where that happens. Otherwise, thank you for joining and participating and supporting Cal NORML. And if you're not on our email list, please, I'll send a link around for getting onto that. That's how we alert people about votes coming up, things like this, about other events. Hopefully we'll be able to do sometime live in the future shortly here. And, you know, you've got 3 levels of government and you need to engage on all 3, state, local, and federal. So we're all represented here today.
I have a question. This is Ian in Los Angeles. My question's for you, Hirsch. You threw out, during your presentation, you threw out a few numbers of what you thought was an appropriate number of licenses on a per capita basis, you know, for very specific cities. What do you think is a realistic number of dispensaries on a per capita basis? Do you have like a target in mind on like what would be a good access? How many is enough?
Yeah,
I know it's not enough now, but what is the number?
I would say in general, the ratio that I've heard that has been pretty persuasive is 1 to 10,000 citizens, 1 dispensary for 10,000 people. You might remember that last year when Phil Ting introduced his bill AB 1356, he proposed one dispensary for every 10,000 residents. I mean, that's been shown to work in other states. What that would mean in California currently has 700 dispensaries, but should have like 5,000 on a per capita basis. So that's how far we have to go. The last thing that I'll say is, again, I think that's a reasonable ratio, but there are cities that have even more dispensaries per resident and they do just fine. Like there are cities like Lompoc, for example, which is in Santa Barbara County, or Port Hueneme that have 1 dispensary for every like 3,000, 4,000 residents. And that still works. These businesses are able to do reasonably well. And so I think in general, we're just far, far too conservative about the number of licenses that we issue out. And that makes the market very unhealthy in certain ways. It drives up real estate prices. It leads to litigation. And it's not the way that we treat any other business, right? We don't say, here's 2 pizza stores in town, so.
Do you know how many, what our per capita number is statewide in California?
It's
And how does that compare to other states? Like I believe I've heard that Oklahoma actually has a great number of dispensaries on their per capita basis. But do you know any of those numbers?
Yeah, so California has 700 standalone dispensaries, and as a point of comparison, the city of Denver has about 500 in and of itself, right? So California as a state only has 200 more than the city of Denver. The state of Colorado has about 1,100 dispensaries, and California, which is 6 times the population of Colorado, has less. So I think those are useful comparisons. The Oklahoma is definitely on one end of the spectrum. They have like 2,000 dispensaries, right? It only costs $2,500 to open a dispensary in Oklahoma. I mean, that's super free market, and probably not everyone would want to go that far. But in Oklahoma, it's kind of working out, right? Like, I mean, people can participate in the economy. They don't have to be millionaires to do so, and some of the best dispensaries win out. So.
Actually, I should also point out before Prop 64 came along, we had over 1,800 medical cannabis cooperatives operating in California. So we've gone from 1,800 down to fewer than 800 in the last 2 or 3 years. Yes? Hello?
Wait, here's the numbers going up again.
Yeah, those are fantastic numbers. It certainly illustrates the point, Hirsch, that we got a long way to go here in California for getting more licenses out there.
Absolutely. And that's why we need to stay more active at the local level. And it's great what you're doing at LA NORML, Ian, the wonderful crew that you've put together. It's really revitalized things down there. And, we do have chapters around the state. We've got Contra Costa, we've got Inland Empire, we've got Central Valley. Orange County has been great for a long time, San Diego. And you can always start a NORML chapter. It takes 5 members to start a NORML chapter. And so there's information on our website and on National's site about doing that. National's been really stepped up their support of local chapters. They're having 2 meetings a week for, all kinds of resources. I know Ian's been participating in those a lot. And so it's a good time to get involved still. We still have a lot of work to do at the local level and beyond. So yes, we did talk about, come in earlier, people. We did talk about the UN vote and the San Francisco vote. Dale, do you want to repeat what happened in the UN in San Francisco real quick?
Okay, to repeat, the UN did vote by a bare margin to remove cannabis from what is effectively Schedule 1, the tightest, most restricted class of drugs. Heroin is the other such drug, and they moved it to the status of a regular medical controlled substance, equivalent to putting it in Schedule 2 or 3 or even 4 in the United States. This is something we've been working on for maybe 60 years or something. Finally happened. The UN cannot, however, deschedule. It can only reschedule under the rules that it has. And in San Francisco, yes, we did fight off the proposed ban on cannabis smoking and vaping in all apartment units and dwellings, multi-unit dwellings of, I think, 3 or more. We needed an amendment from Supervisor Mandelman to make it happen, but that amendment did pass, I think 8-3 margin, which was fairly good. However, tobacco smokers are sort of stuck now, out of luck, in San Francisco. Even if you've been smoking there for 40 years with no problems, now it's illegal under the new ordinance. But we're fighting the battle for cannabis here, and we won that. We've done it in West Hollywood as well. If anybody hears about a local anti-smoking ordinance about to come up, please contact us, because we have really good materials from that San Francisco hearing that we can share, including wonderful testimony from Dr. Donald Abrams that we got, who was sort of a recognized national expert on cannabis, saying that cannabis smoking is not like tobacco smoking and has not been shown to harm human health. So
I keep muting myself. This is
Sarah,
going on in
Sarah,
at least 60 other cities that we're told that these smoking bans are being pushed by anti-tobacco forces in conjunction with local health departments and even the state. California Department of Public Health is conflating marijuana smoke with tobacco smoke in policy, in their pronouncements, and their, you know, and using tobacco tax money to do so. And so this is something we really got to be pushing back against with what we always do, with science, with passion, with activism, with involvement and education. So, oh yeah, I was going to put the link to sign up for the CalNormal email list if anyone hasn't. And I guess, see if
I had a hand raised, and I got kind of, the conversation kept going earlier. So this is Chris Conrad. I wanted to mention first off that I posted the UN vote into the chat. So make sure you download that if you want to see how close that vote was. And also just say congratulations on all the great work people have done. It's terrific. And the third thing I wanted to say is that Sam Clowder, a lot of us know from being an activist in California, sometimes a controversial activist, I dare say, he got busted in Texas and he served this time, and he was supposed to have been released on October the 15th, and they're still holding him. And so anybody who's interested in trying to helping Sam out on this, particularly if somebody has some, as an attorney who would like to just shake up the situation and say, you know, call the jail and find out why he's not out of there and so forth, to put some pressure on him, let me know, and I'll just type my email address into the chat for people who want it. Just to say it aloud, though, it's case@chrisconrad.com is the preferred one, and I will type it into the chat. And thank you for this opportunity to talk. It was a great meeting.
Okay, great. Yeah, Dale and I were just talking today. We think our last federal medical marijuana prisoner in California is Luke Scarmazio, who was given over a 20-year sentence, I believe. And he's been part of, you've probably seen a national campaign to let go all the marijuana prisoners that still is required, because so many of them were sentenced to very long sentences many years ago. And I mean, I know of one in Michigan, they're trying to get out, and they're still actually trying to find a place for him to go even. And of course, with COVID happening, it's all the more urgent, as well as unjust.
well, Luke should have tried to marry into the Trump family.
Oh, yeah. What's up, Bill? You got anything to add today?
Just Chris, did you get my email about contacting Jerry Goldstein in Texas?
Oh yeah, you know, thanks for reminding me. I have to look up his information. I guess I don't know that I have a phone number for him. So
he's on the NORML list. Just go to normal.org and look at lawyers in Texas. He's right up there.
All right, thanks. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. You know, one thing I'm curious about, I don't know if you want to speak on it. I got an email today from some cannabis organization telling me why I should be against the MORE Act. You guys aware of that?
Yeah, in fact, Sean Kiernan is probably the originator of that. He was on the call earlier and Justin answered some of his questions. Veterans still have some concerns. What Justin said is the focus of this has been very much just on the criminal justice aspect, and they very much hope to expand it in many ways, including research, helping veterans and that sort of thing. Sean, as many are, is also concerned about the tax in the MORE Act. And Dale was on a call. Can I talk about that, Dale? I mean, they
I can talk about that.
yeah,
This act had been advertised as having a $5 5% tax on cannabis products, federal tax to fund all these wonderful programs they want to fund. At the last moment, the bill was going to, I guess, the Ways and Means Committee or something like that, and they wanted to up the tax to 25% for whatever reasons. So we had an emergency session where we talked them down, and I said, sorry, that's bait and switch. We settled on 5%, and there's no way the state can absorb any more. The 5% is absorbable because of the 280E tax provision will go away. And if you look at that, the amount of money that the industry saves on that is about equal to the 5% tax. So, but beyond that, it's impossible to support it. Anyhow, we were able to shut that down, and they did put in an escalator clause allowing the tax to go up to 8% in 5 years. But the important thing to remember, don't get hung up on the details of this bill. It's not going to become law because the Senate is not going to do anything. This is just a general sweeping statement that marijuana should be legalized and descheduled at the federal level. That's what it is. And it's really important that we send that message, especially to Joe Biden, because he's been a little bit reluctant here to say he supports legalization. He only wants decrim. And we don't want to have them just, reschedule to Schedule 2 or something lame like that. We need descheduling. And this is the message that needs to be sent now. So that's the bottom line.
Thank you.
So if you haven't done so, please contact your congressperson, your representative to.
Well, I heard the question came up about the Cocoa County congressperson, but I didn't get the answer.
Justin was looking at, I don't think he's either co-sponsored or committed to voting for it. It looks like Angela and Chris and Mickey are exploring it, and I'll circle back with Justin and see if he can give me more information about that and get that to the Cocoa folks.
Okay. Because if you want me to, if it would be helpful to call his office or write him a letter, I can do that, because I do live in Cocoa County by 150 feet.
Just call his office. That's what Justin said to do. Call his office, say, please vote for the MORE Act.
Okay.
Yeah, can't hurt to do that. Good. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for joining. Great meeting. Look for your CalNormal newsletter in the mail, and soon renew your membership there or online. Remember us going forward, because there's a lot left to do, and
keep on token.
Yeah. All right.
Keep on token.